What's up, guys? Welcome to the Real Christian Show. My name is Ben Potzsch, and I'm your host. Guys, today we're going to have a really killer show. A few of the topics that we're going to be discussing, a lot about Israel. It's been very trendy. I think there's a big awakening in social media, and there's a lot of different topics that we're going to be talking about. And we have a special guest also in the show. We met a couple. Actually, we haven't even met. This is the first time we actually see each other. And online, we've been DMing back and forth on social media. We're both LDS, and we post a lot about the same content. So we just decided to do a episode together. But we got Christopher Lee in the house. How you doing, brother?
Yes, sir. Doing good. Glad to be here. So super excited, man. This stuff has all been like coming out recently. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that we can just talk about it and address it.
And to give people a hint, stand up so you can show your shirt.
Oh yeah.
So
So
people know what we're
in
talking
case
about.
you guys, so here's my shirt. It says "Hell has lobbyists," and I'll get a little closer. You could probably guess who that is.
Yeah, Bibi Netanyahu.
Bibi
And
Netanyahu.
guys, the cool thing about this, we're gonna get two different perspectives. You know, I try to use a lot of common sense when it comes to this type of stuff. I don't like when people push an agenda or have a propaganda on us. Chris has been really talking about Israel, what's going on with AIPAC, different content that you've been posting about. A lot of it's been from also World War II and history and Hitler, and we're going to talk about it, maybe get a different perspective. I have a lot of opinions with it too. And then next week, I'm going to do an episode with two people that are very involved in the pro-Israel agenda. And I'm also excited to see kind of like the other side of what they think about Israel and what being a Christian Zionist means, which is very interesting. I'm not really, I don't really like the whole thing that they got going on with that, but just having a different perspective. So anyhow, Chris, the first question that we're going to be talking about on a general scheme before we jump right into each topic is, what's with this whole Israel agenda that has been very pushy, and you can see, especially on social media, I would say it started coming out way more after Charlie Kirk's death, when he died, when he got assassinated, when Bibi Netanyahu started promoting, dude, he loved Israel. He was a whole, like they just took like a whole, they made it about Israel instead of this guy's life and the U.S., if that makes sense. Well, what's your take on this whole Israel agenda that's been kind of
It's
like a
been kind of
propaganda?
going. Well, I mean, it all really started like the major kind of change in U.S. politics began on October 7th in 2023, right? That's really when this all started coming out. And then, yes, what you're saying, especially recently since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, is it's been worse, right? You've seen a lot more of it. So, and I think that's spouting from the fact that if you look at Charlie, he was probably the biggest, most outspoken conservative voice in the United States.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
1000%.
Yeah. So, and everybody knew him. And he also was very pro-Israel for a very long time. Up until right about the end, he was starting to kind of differ a little bit, right? I mean, and this guy was a big fan of Israel. He loved Israel. He went there. He visited the nation many times. He always defended them and was on their side. But if you go back after October 7th, there's a clip of him where he says, they're talking about ethnically cleansing Gaza,
Yeah.
right? And
I've
he's
seen
like
that at
starting to
DVD.
question, right?
Yeah.
You've probably seen the clip, right?
Yeah.
A lot of those clips they've now scrubbed and taken off the internet. So I think the real reason that we're seeing so much is because Americans are starting to wake up and realize their country is completely tied to this other foreign nation, right? It's a completely separate nation. And yet, if you look at AIPAC, right, the American Israeli lobby, about 95% of the Congress is funded by this group, this Israeli group.
There's only 3 politicians that haven't been paid by it. It's like Marjorie something.
Marjorie Taylor, Thomas
Thomas
Massey,
Massey.
and maybe one other.
And then there was one more, but even Biden, I think he took like 12, 11 million. Trump is like 210 million funds raised from AIPAC. But why do you think, and I know this is a big question, let's talk about Charlie Kirk for a minute. Because I think that clip that you talked about when he's talking about Israel cleaning Gaza and taking everybody out, and then Trump also saying, yeah, we're gonna make the Gaza Strip and a real estate and all these different things. The whole bombing, killing children, and they always justify saying, dude, Hamas, they use children as shields or whatever. What else? When it comes to Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens has done a great job showing what Charlie Kirk actually thought about Israel when she showed the text thread. Him saying, you know what, I'm not gonna take any bullying from the Israel donors, and he said at the last text, and this is completely facts, when he said, I might have to leave the pro Israel agenda, and then the whole bring in um Tucker Carlson, which is not a huge Israel fan, and then what's the other guy? He's a huge independent that they did like a whole debate. It
Nick
was
Fuentes.
no, it's not Nick Fuentes.
Oh,
It was this dude against this other pro-Israel guy. What the heck is this? Then anyway, there's like this
Dan
huge debate.
Blazarian.
No, I'll have to look it up. But anyhow, he just created a platform for people that didn't have a pro-Israel agenda to talk about Israel and what's actually going on. And then after his death, Bibi and all these influencers like, oh, dude, Israel. I mean, Charlie loved Israel. He's a huge. It just seemed a little fake, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It just seemed a little fake. Why? Why do you think there's this agenda that is being pushed to all of us about if you believe in Christ, if you believe in God, you need to support Israel. If you're an American citizen, you need to support Israel. Why do you think that is?
So it's all because we need to understand something, that the nation state of Israel, I mean, I really, and maybe we can go here to kind of start, and then we can kind of jump into everything else. It really all goes back to the foundation of this state, the nation state of Israel, in 1948. So there's so much context, I think, that people don't understand.
What's the
Right?
context of it?
And the context of it is the whole Jews, is the formation of a political entity which calls itself Israel, which was created in 1948, right? So, and this nation which was created, it's the people that live there, the Israelis, right? It's based around what we call Zionism, right? And you were kind of talking about with the Christian Zionists, right? So, the Zionists believe that anybody who's Jewish has the right to live in Palestine, live in the geographical area of Israel, right? And so, but in order for this political entity to survive, it's really small, it's really tiny, right? Uh, you could drive across it probably in a couple of hours, right? Like, it's very, very small. And so in order for this political entity, this state, if we'll just look at it as the government and not talking about the people who live there, in order for it to survive, it needs something to support it. And that has become the United States of America.
It's 9.9 million
Right.
people that live in Israel. That's interesting.
9.9 million. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, right. So in
Not
order
that
for
big. New
it's
York
not
is
that
only
big.
8.5, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it's what, smaller? It's like size of New York City, maybe.
It's the same population pretty much of New York. New York is about 8.5 million people.
Yeah. So
So
it's super tiny, right? And so in order for it to survive, it needs the United States to support it, right? And so that's why we're seeing all this propaganda, is because the Israelis understand that they need Americans to support them, right? And in order for that to happen, they have to push certain agendas,
but
right? And put
what
in
does
certain narratives.
what benefit does the US get from supporting Israel? That's my question.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around, and that's the main topic that I was asking this girl and dude that I'm gonna have next week that are super knowledgeable when it comes to this whole Israel stuff. I just want to understand, why does the US has so much interest in Israel? For example, this is what she said, and these guys, I mean, I'm telling you, these people, they had a meeting with Bibi Netanyahu a couple of weeks ago. They're in this whole influencing stuff. She said, It's very practical to support Israel. They support our weapons manufacturers, improve the weapons they get from America. They give them back to us, and they fight our mutual enemies so our troops don't have to. And they safeguard Christian religious sites. That's just from and then the intelligence, which is a bunch of America's enemies, Islam, Muslim countries, and Israel is right in the middle. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like a few of
That's,
the arguments that they were bringing up.
okay, so those are kind of the main things. So the things I hear are, number one, they support us by buying weapons, so through trade. And then the other thing was fighting our enemies. And then what was the other thing?
They fight our mutual enemies so our troops don't have to, and they safeguard Christian religious sites, which
Oh,
I
okay.
agree. That's a
Yeah.
very important from a biblical standpoint.
Yeah, and in some ways I agree with that, but in other ways I disagree. Like they've bombed a bunch of Christians in Gaza. So how is that protecting Christians when they've literally killed many of them, and they
Are
bombed a
you
Catholic
talking about
church? And
Palestinians?
yeah, I'm talking about Palestinians. Yeah, because
Are
there's
they
also
Christians? I thought they
there are
were.
Christians there are Christians that live in Palestine. I
Uh,
mean, I remember seeing on the news how the Pope would call them each and every single night, call the Catholics living there. Like, is it majority Muslim? Yes, it is. But there's
yeah.
also Christians that live there as well and have been living there. And so I guess I just don't really see that, because I see the way they also treat Christians. Like, for example, at BYU Jerusalem, okay, they make you sign a waiver saying that you will never ever speak or share of your religious beliefs to a Jew, to an Israeli Jew. So
Really?
you can't even speak about it. If you speak about it, they can send you back to the US for simply sharing it while you're at BYU Jerusalem.
It's just interesting, dude, because even in the United States, if you speak against Israel, you're called an anti-Semite, or a lot of the people back in the day were getting kicked out of the country just out of speaking against Israel. And it's just, for me, it's just common sense when they try to push an agenda and they make it such a taboo topic. I'm like, why? Like,
Yeah.
why does the U.S., which for what it's making it seem after Charlie Kirk's death, what it makes it seem right now is that we are a nation that's occupied by another country, that genuinely the United States and most politicians, I would probably even dare to say that they're more Israel first and then America second. And what I told you before, I'm a huge nationalist. I'm a huge F everybody else, focus on this country, and we don't send any money to anybody else, and we focus on everything in here.
Yeah,
Let's
me too,
make this country
100%.
the best that you can. Let's protect our families here. Let's make this military the best ever, and literally screw everyone else. That's my mentality. I just don't understand why they have such an agenda in protecting Israel. Even if we just talk about it from because the other argument that she said, and I'll read it, for example, she said, first and foremost, I'm a Christian and I'm guided by the Bible. Okay. I believe God's promise to Abraham to give him descendants that would turn into a nation and inhabit a particular territory. That God would bless those who bless him and curse those who curse him. That promise doesn't have an expiration date. And we also see throughout the Bible that the heroes of the Christian faith that were Jewish, and many of them became heroes by contributing to Israel's national endeavors. In a literal sense, a Jewish nation defending itself is biblical. So they use this whole argument that we are the chosen people and all this different BS, when how I can refute that argument, it's pretty much saying when it comes to God's chosen people, it's not the physical little descendants of Jacob. It's literally those who obey Christ, and it's not, back in the day it was the Jews and the Gentiles, and pretty much if you're a Gentile, you're seen in a different way because you're not God's chosen people. But Christ and the apostles made it seem in a way, and what they were preaching is you can be adopted to this family, the chosen people, if you get baptized, if you accept Christ into your life, if you repent, if you change from the inside. Now it's not a thing made out of blood, that if you're a pure descendant of a Jew, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that opened the door to believers, Jews, and Gentiles, which is pretty much everybody else is not a Jew. So I just don't understand why there's such a big agenda in pushing Israel so hard and using God when it comes to the Christianity, like Jews, they don't even believe Christ is the Son of God. They don't even believe that Christ is the guy. They don't even acknowledge that this dude was the savior of the world. So we don't even believe the same thing.
No.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, we don't believe the same. In fact, their whole entire religion is based upon the rejection of Jesus Christ as the Savior,
Yeah.
right? So that's it. And if you look at the Talmud, what it is basically, so in 70 AD, the temple gets destroyed, right? Okay. So, and the Romans attack, and the Jews, they try to do a revolt, like 1 million of them get killed. They try to expel them out of Palestine for it, and the temple's destroyed, right? And so what happens is they write there's the Torah, right? The scripture, the books of Moses, all that, right? And then there's an oral Torah, which was given in the temple, which was a tradition passed down orally. This they wrote down after the temple was destroyed, because they figured, well, we don't have a temple, so we should probably write it down. And then, but there's also the Talmud, which is almost like a New Testament, you could call it, for Jews. It's not exactly that. What it is different rabbis arguing back and forth about an interpretation of what the law of Moses and what the Old Testament is saying. And so it's kind of their opinions going back and forth. And so, and in that, many of them say, like, Christ is burning in, like he's burning in hell, in
Okay, but where?
excrement,
Because I
right?
also want to be fair, because I've seen that all over social media that Mary, it's pretty much a whore. Christ is burning in hell in excrement, and that he was an apostle. I did find the apostate one, but I want to know the other one, because I know it's I couldn't find it myself, so I'm just making, maybe you know
Yeah.
more about that than me. And
Yeah, there's a book that you can read. It's called Jesus in the Talmud. And it explains exactly what they believe and how Jesus is portrayed in the Talmud. So, um, like many of them also, so here it is, in Gittin, Gittin 56b through 57a, describes a sorcerer named Onkelous summoning the spirit of Jesus. According to the text, the spirit is being punished in hell by being boiled in excrement. Um, and there's also, but like I said, it's not like all of the Jews believe that this is scripture, right? Like the Talmud, right? Because it's different rabbis arguing kind of back and forth, giving their opinion on the law and what it means. And so, although some of them kind of view it that way, right? Because they revere those leaders as almost like prophets, right? So,
it's
there's
an
a little bit of
interesting religion.
nuance there.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a different religion from the Old Testament Judaism, right? Because the Old Testament Judaism was revolving around the temple and the sacrifices, right? And there was, you had, I might be wrong on this, guys, but I believe it was called Yom Kippur or whatever, which is like the Day of Atonement, right? Where they would sacrifice, like two goats, and one of them would be, they would place the sins on the head of the goat, and then that one would die, and it represented Christ, right? And it was this representation of that Christ was going to come. And then Christ comes, he fulfills the law, right? And then that's what happens, and the temple gets destroyed. So, and then after the temple is destroyed, now you have more of a different version of Judaism, which is based upon this rabbinical Judaism. So, because they no longer have the temple, right? And we see that kind of theme of, like, even now they're looking for their Messiah, and I think this is where the Christian Zionism comes in, of how they've managed to usurp, like, authority over Christians. How the Jews have been able to do that is by saying, well, right, because there are prophecies that the Jews were going to go back in the last days, that they would return unto the land of Palestine, right? So those are legitimate prophecies in the Bible. The Bible specifically talks about this event, right? And so what happens, I think, is Christians see that and they think, oh, well, these guys are going to bring, the Jews are going back to Israel, so it means they're fulfilling prophecy and they're going to bring the Messiah back. So they almost view it as like, oh, they're going to rebuild the temple. So they almost view these people as like little saviors. I don't know if that makes sense, right? And
Yeah.
that's why they say God's chosen people, right? Because they believe these people are going to, like, help rush in the second coming, when in
But it's
reality,
not. It's just prophecies. It's just things that need to happen. It doesn't mean
exactly.
that they're right or wrong.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the prophecy of Christ dying, it was a wrong thing. You can't say, "Oh, that's so good that he died." It's wrong that they killed him, but it was part of the prophecy, things that need to be fulfilled. Same thing with Judas, that it was a prophecy that these dudes are going to betray him. So when it comes to the whole Israel taking up their land, it's not like, oh yeah, support taking it. No, it's not a right or wrong. Like that's it's going to happen, but that doesn't mean we got to support it. Because another prophecy is that the whole world at some point they're going to be in war with Israel,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that's going to be more of a like a country itself or people going after people that actually identify themselves with Christ and they belong to His chosen people. That you can be either adopted through the covenants that you make with Christ and God, or just by blood, which is not even the whole blood thing and bloodline because you're just Israel. It just doesn't make any sense because
Yeah.
in the New Testament it's pretty much saying you can be adopted through the family of Christ and the chosen people by baptism and following Christ and accepting making covenants with Him. So that's just like a really stupid argument. Now
Yeah.
it's very what do you got?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna share exactly. I think that's kind of the misconception. Like when people say they say God's chosen people. It's, well, my question is, who is chosen, and how are you chosen?
Well,
Eh,
think about
right?
these think about this statement though. Sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but
go
think
ahead.
about this statement. And I know we also said that we're going to talk about Hitler because I have a lot of questions about it. One of the biggest things that Adolf Hitler fell into, he was saying the Aryans or Aryats or whatever the heck the race was in with the pure breed of German people were superior than anybody. Therefore, that's why we need to go and conquer the world and be everywhere. And that's why the family was so promoted and having kids was so promoted and you couldn't marry outside of the same race and all these different things. Now Jews go against it and saying like, yeah, dude, he's trying to his race is better, superior, chosen, all this stuff. But isn't that what they believe in as well? Hey, we're the chosen and screw everybody else.
Yeah,
Isn't that what they attack Hitler for? Does that
yeah,
make sense? Do you see the
and
double standard?
and that's exactly what they do. That's literally the same thing that they do. They just do it among themselves. Like they don't want to marry outside very often outside their group unless they're marrying, for example, like Trump, his Ivanka married Jared Kushner, a Jew, and so I think that's another reason why we're so closely tied to Israel is because Trump's daughter, his son-in-law, is like very influential in that country. Anyways, I didn't mean to get off topic. Um going back to what you're saying, what it really reminds me of is, I don't know, for any LDS, listeners out there, in the Book of Mormon, there's a group called the Zoramites. And the Zoramites, they specifically, what they would do is they would go up onto this really tall tower, okay? And they would go there once a week, and they would just boast about how they were so much better than everybody, how they were God's special chosen people. Specifically, this is what they would actually pray. And it's pretty crazy. So this is in Alma 31. And it says, Holy, holy God, we believe that thou art God, and we believe that thou art holy, and that thou wast a spirit, and that thou art a spirit, and that thou wilt be a spirit forever. Holy God, we believe that thou hast separated us from our brethren, and we do not believe in the tradition of our brethren, which is handed down to them by the childness of their fathers, but we believe that thou hast elected us to be thy holy children, and also how thou hast made it known unto us that there shall be no Christ, right? And so this is what they believed, right? They say, we also thank thee that thou hast elected us, that we may not be led away after the foolish traditions of our brethren, which doth bind them down to belief in Christ. And again, we thank thee, O God, that we are a chosen and a holy people. Amen. And that's the exact, and unfortunately, and again, I don't want to, I want to say this, guys, there's good groups of people and bad groups of people in every big group. There's
Yeah.
good Mexicans, bad Mexicans. There's good Americans, bad Americans, good Christians, bad Christians. And so it's the same with the Jews. I don't want to cast aspersions on everyone and right. Like there's good people amongst every group. But this is how they pray, right? Like just think about the wall, right? Every single US politician goes to Israel, touches the wall, and says the specific prayer, wears the hat. And this is essentially what they're doing is boasting. We're God's special,
It's
holy,
just
chosen people. It's just we're better than everyone else. He chose us over you guys. And they're not afraid to just say that. They say that to people. But what did Christ say when he came? Anybody can be chosen if they choose him, if they choose to
yes.
walk and follow him.
Yes.
We're all God's children. So no one's special.
Yeah. And I agree with you, dude. I think and hopefully I'm a huge part of this movement too. When I go talk to college students and events, I'm going to California in a week from now, and we're planning a BYU UU event as well. and hopefully UNLV in Vegas soon, and I do a lot of just Utah colleges down here as well. But the whole idea, and I think it's a movement that we're gonna start seeing more of it, is becoming an America first, genuinely America first. I think a lot of people, they're seeing that there's so much deep corruption and so many other interests everywhere else but America's interest. And a lot of different groups, a lot of different countries, they've whistled their way into politics, they're whistled their way into power and influence and having a big platform in this country because America, it is the best country in the world, and they use all the resources and opportunity to promote everything but America values and first interest. And I hope we can get to that place at some point of genuinely America first. And it's funny because even with the whole mayor election in New York, they were doing this debate and they were asking them, everybody, let me quote it because I have it right here, so I'm not misquoting anything. But the question was, if they had, oh wait, where is it? What would be the first visit? Oh, hit.
Yeah.
Oh, where is it? I have it right here.
They're
Oh,
asking, I'm like, who? Yeah.
what would be your first foreign trip to be as mayor? Most people, they talked about, for example, Cuomo is like, with all the hostility against Israel and anti-Semitism, I would go to Israel. Then somebody said, Adam said, Holy Land. Then Whitney Tilson talk about Israel and then Ukraine. And then Scott Stringer talk about Israel and then whatever. And then um, Mandami said, well, my plans are to address New Yorkers here. Like I'm gonna stay here. Like pretty much saying I'm why would I want to go to this place if there's a lot of stuff happening in New York? And I don't agree with this guy. I think he's a communist. I think this whole free ideology is a bunch of BS. But I think one of the reasons why he got elected is because people are waking up and being like, hey, I like that dude
Yeah.
because screw Israel.
Well,
Like
yeah.
that's the main thing,
That's
you
the main
know?
thing with Gen Z. If you look right now, like on the left and the right, that's the one thing that's kind of interesting is you have both. I think what's happened is our country has been kind of destroyed. And I mean, we're $37 trillion in debt. Like we're funding all these foreign wars. Like it's just been this, and like if you look at the quality of life, like none of us are going to be able to afford a home. Okay, BlackRock, Larry Fink, who's also a Jew by the way, owns like this company owns like most like 40% of single home family homes. So they've raised the prices. So Gen Z's just sitting here like we've had enough. We're done. And they've started to wake up realizing how much control, even though they're only like 2% of the population, these people have.
Do
Right.
you know that that's the interesting fact? Israel, like Jews in the United States, are less than 2% of the population.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many billionaires are Jews?
Mm-mm.
20 to 30%
Mm.
of billionaires
Yeah.
are Jews, but
Yeah.
only in American population, it's only than 2%. But 20 to
Yeah.
30% are billionaires, which
Yeah.
is very interesting.
And then and
I
then
started what?
and then so there's that, and then if you look at our media, like most of pretty much all of the companies are owned by
Warner
like Jewish
Bros. Jews.
billionaires.
Do you know Sam Altman? He's Jew. Mark Zuckerberg.
Facebook, Mark,
Mark
yep,
Zuckerberg. I think
Zuckerberg.
he's also Jew, if I'm not mistaken.
TikTok was just bought by Larry Ellison, Jewish. Um Uh,
If I
Pornhub,
let me just
Solomon
check
Friedman,
here.
right? Owned by a Jew. So people are starting to wake up like, whoa, what's going on here? And it's really starting to look a lot like 1920s Weimar Republic Germany,
Oh yeah,
you
Mark
know?
Zuckerberg is ethnically and culturally Jewish.
Yeah.
Jewish. Sam Altman is also Jewish. If you, because I did this research when it comes to the media, Hollywood, who started Hollywood, all the big entertainment companies, tech companies, and who owns most of this stuff, and then the banker stuff. A lot of these guys, they have Jewish ties or are actually Jews or have just dual citizenship with America and Israel. So, and I'm not saying conspiracy theories, they have an agenda. I'm just using common sense. I'm
Yeah.
just asking
I
questions
I don't
because it seems a little sus.
yes.
You know
And
what
I
I'm
don't
saying?
yeah, totally. And I don't think it's necessarily like people want to make everything out to be some big giant conspiracy, but I think a lot of times it's just they have common interests. It's as simple as that. It's not like they're, maybe they're always calling each other up and we're going to plan this special thing. Now that does happen. You look at the USS Liberty incident, there's other things we could talk about, but I think mostly it's just when you come from a certain, they have a very, very strongly tight knit
Yes,
group,
they
like
do.
identity, like very tight knit, like they stick together, they work together, right? And so their interests are therefore going to align. And this is just the pattern that's gone on throughout all
You
of
like
history.
Trump?
I really liked him until he got into office this second term, and then he went back on so many things
Like, let's talk a
because
little bit about that. I didn't have it planned, but I think
yeah,
'cause I was a big Trump supporter before. I
yeah,
genuinely
me
like the
too.
guy. I think he has a personality, business, entrepreneurship type of guy, and he's a very smart dude. I just don't like the whole everybody else but America first
Yeah.
mentality, And what do you think about the Epstein list?
Oh yeah,
Epstein
that's the other
files?
thing I did want to talk about. So I think that was the two biggest things that concerned me when Trump got into office. Is all of a sudden he flips a 180 and says no. He even called the Epstein list a Democrat hoax, right? And then he's going to Israel, kissing the wall, and sending billions of dollars, and just doing whatever Bibi Netanyahu wants. I think
Why
that's
don't
the
you think he
biggest
wants
thing.
to release it?
What's that?
Why do you think he doesn't want to release it?
Because I don't think he wants to release the list because I don't necessarily think Trump
I
is
don't think he's in the list.
I
I
don't think he's
genuinely,
on the list.
yeah,
Like,
I don't think.
okay, I think he's just like a normal man that, like the dude doesn't even drink. He doesn't smoke. Like he, I think his weakness is obviously money and women, like most
Yeah,
powerful men, right? But I don't think he's never a guy,
done like some pedophile stuff or whatever.
yeah. But we know, like Bill Clinton, for example, was
No,
literally
he's
a painting.
fully,
Yeah,
yeah,
he was
he's fully
fully
there.
there. Yeah, like there's a painting of him that Jeffrey Epstein had on his island of Bill Clinton in a dress. Like, it's really weird. You guys
Okay,
can.
but why don't you think he wants to release the files?
So
Why?
back to that. Yeah, um, because I think he's protecting a lot of people that are on it, and once these
That
things
are
get out, the people that are on
Jewish,
it.
probably.
Yeah, that a lot of them are Jewish, and if you look like Jeffrey Epstein, he's Jewish. He also there's a picture of him in an IDF shirt. The other thing is, do you want to know something crazy? His wife, Ghislaine Maxwell, her father, his name's Robert Maxwell, and he was one of the most prolific Israeli spies in history. That's just a fact that you can Google.
No,
And
I've
so,
studied a lot of this stuff. I don't know if you've seen the video of this reporter that goes to finds the lawyer. I think it was a judge or a lawyer. I can't remember specifically, but this reporter goes and talks to this dude that he interviewed a lot of the victims from Epstein. And he goes in depth of, yes, this dude was a Mossad asset. He had a lot of ties with the CIA, and he talks about a lot of about the people that were in the files and were in the list and what happened in the island. And he talks about Trump, that he didn't do anything, but he's like, yeah, the Clintons, yes, they did a lot of stuff. He mentioned specifically a case that they were in a plane and rapes were happening while Clinton was in the plane with underage girls. So I forgot the dude's name. I think is from the these files that I think it's O'Keefe something
O'Keefe
with it.
Media, yeah, James O'Keefe.
Yeah, those are the guys that O'Keefe that show this thing. I think it's called. I saw it a couple weeks ago. It was very interesting.
Yeah, he's done a lot of deep
It was
research
from the
into it.
Project Vratis thing, but then the dude got fired from it. But he's the one that talked about the report because one of his reporters found this guy, and it's very interesting. I'll send
They
it to
found a
you.
guy who looked through the files.
That interview the
Oh
victims.
wow.
That
Yeah.
yeah, and I think he was a lawyer if I'm not mistaken. Trying to
Yeah.
find it
Well,
here.
and do you
One
know
sec.
about the judge Alex Acosta? Have you heard of that name?
No, I have not.
So there was there's this judge named Alex Acosta, and in 2008 Jeffrey Epstein had some charges against him. I don't remember the exact charges, but it was something to do with like I think it might have been to do with sex trafficking. And anyways, these charges got brought against him, and basically Alex Acosta, the judge, just let Epstein off with a slap on the wrist and just let him go with a easy plea deal. And when somebody asked him later, years later, when all the stuff started coming out about Epstein, what did Alex Acosta say? He said somebody had come to him and told him Epstein's government intelligence, so you got to leave him alone. You got to you got to let him off easy. And so that's what this judge has said. So this guy basically was saying that Epstein was an intelligence asset for
Oh,
somebody.
he was definitely
So
part of it. 1,000, yeah.
and so there's so much evidence that points to it being the Mossad. And so and then when you think about that, what does that mean? That means that our US politicians are being blackmailed by a foreign nation. And
Okay,
so
here it is. His name is Glenn Prager. He was Jeffrey Epstein investigators Department of Justice. I'll send you this stuff. It's very interesting. They do a whole report. We can post it. We can watch it later, but it's really interesting. I think there's two things. I would agree with you. I think Trump is definitely covering up a lot of powerful people, billionaires, celebrities, and people that are on the files. That the Clintons have a bunch of power, and other billionaires that are Jews and stuff. But also, I think there's also because the FBI, they took a lot of these camera files and all the evidence. If I'm not mistaken, it was in the 2009 or something like that. 2000 and remember 2004. It was before. It was like a while ago. Maybe people can fact check me on that, but he was like a while ago, and he wasn't even. I think it was Obama and under Obama's administration, and for what they took, um, they don't. It's what they have right now for the investigation. So I think there's a lot of stuff missing, and I think through the years with the FBI and other federal bureaus, how do you pronounce it? Bureaus. How do you say it?
with
The federal bureaus.
Bureau of
Sorry, my accent's
Investigation.
coming out.
No, you're good.
I think they did cover up a lot of things, and right now I don't think they have the full information. So I think it's both. I think there's definitely people hiding it, and a lot of the stuff that was taken back in the day when they did the whole investigation with Epstein and everything, they didn't take everything. They don't have a lot of the evidence, and it was either destroyed or hidden or whatever. But also, I think for what they have right now, there's a lot of stuff that's been hidden to protect certain people and billionaires and wealthy people and celebrities. And
Yeah, I
that's
would
where
agree.
Trump also was like, you know what? I don't like that stuff.
Yeah, I would
Covering up
agree. I
for
think it's a little bit
pedophiles.
of both. I think it's a little bit of some of it probably got destroyed, some of the evidence, and some of it's just covering up because they actually interviewed Trump when Epstein got arrested. He was one of the few guys that was willing to. I think it was the first time he got arrested, Epstein. Like they interviewed Trump, and he was one of the only guys that was willing to talk to him about it. So I don't necessarily
Yeah.
think he's on the list. And Trump even in like 2015 was saying there's a lot of weird stuff that's going to be coming about that Epstein guy. Like he was like quoted as saying something to that effect. And then he did a complete 180. And
Well,
so
you remember that when this whole thing was coming out that weekend, you know who came to the US? Bibi
who's that?
Netanyahu. He was right here. It was a Saturday, Sunday. I
Yeah.
don't know where this dude lands in the White House. Is when this whole thing came out. So I think there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that we're not seeing. And I think there's just a lot of ties with Israel. I don't know. I just want to know the truth.
Yeah.
I I don't the whole pedophile stuff. I think all those guys their wiener should be cut off and never be able to do anything. And friggin' they're a cancer to society. And what's another thing that you kind of like with Trump? You're like, dude, I don't know. Epstein being one of them, the Epstein files. What else?
Epstein, and then kind of the blank check it support of Israel and putting their needs ahead. And even not just Israel, but other countries. Like for example, Trump did a whole deal with Argentina to buy beef from them when it's like, we have American farmers that could provide that. And like you're investing into that. Like, why are we investing so much into all these other nations? Or like there was a point where Trump was going to allow 600,000 Chinese communist students into our universities on visas. And I was like, why is he doing all these things for these other countries when the whole reason that we voted for him was to put America first, right? And the other thing for
Yeah.
me is like the one of the few things I have liked is that he's been tough. He's somewhat kept his word on immigration, not completely, but yeah, I would say mostly it's just been the putting of the other countries first and the ties to just basically letting Bibi walk all over him and do whatever he
You
wants.
know how much money the U.S. giving aid to Israel every year?
Was it like 34 billion or
3.5 billion a year.
okay.
It's been since 2019 to 2028, 34 billion that they're gonna do in total, but they give about 3.5 billion a year in
Yeah.
aid, which is very funny because there's a government shutdown. U.S. troops are not getting
Yeah.
paid, but you know what? Who's getting paid? Israel. They're still doing the Israel aid, and a lot of all these countries they still get paid, but our own citizens and people that defend this country, sadly, they're not getting paid, or they're. I know with the government shutdown, they're still figuring some stuff out. And but I'm with you, dude. I like Trump, but this whole agenda of other countries first and the whole foreign policy, I'm not a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
And I think we need a radical change of somebody who's actually a nationalist and will put America's interest over everybody. And I'm all about the idea of literally screw everybody else and let's just make America the best country in the world. I think there's a lot of stuff that need to be done here. And I don't know, dude. Recently, in changing the topic too, I've been studying a lot about World War II, and this is one of the topics I
Yeah.
wanted to talk to you about. And I've been studying a lot about Adolf Hitler, which is very uh, people don't talk about it a lot. It's very banned on social media. If you talk about his ideas, you're pretty much a racist, anti-Semite. Like literally, you're gonna go to hell if you like even talk about it. I don't even support the
Yeah.
guy, but
No,
just
even just
looking into history.
even just bringing the topic up, right?
Yeah, even bringing the topic, and it's very interesting because I think you posted this video of Germany before 1933, how they had hyperinflation, the German currency was worthless. There were about 400,000 homeless
Yep.
people after World War One, and these whole wealthy people, the bankers that had all the money, and then the rest they were literally starving. And it was the inflation, the homelessness, the GDP was so low, and it was a mess. And after 6 years after this dude took over, the GDP I think was about 101 or 150 something, and the production when it comes to manufacturing was up to 90%, and employment rate was up to 90%. There was about 6 million people that didn't have jobs before 1933, and then and inflation was almost out, and there were everything was just pretty much booming. Obviously, being in a war and the whole manufacturing for war and everything genuinely helped. They even had a policy that for income tax, if you had more than 4 kids, you didn't pay income taxes. That was very interesting, just to promote families. They eradicated every single thing with prostitutes and LGBTQ stuff and trans stuff, and just promoted family values and marriage and having kids. They would also give loans to people that would get married, like newly married people, and then they would forgive it according to how many kids you had. So I was very interested how this guy genuinely care about his people. Now, I think the problem was when he started globalizing everybody else and thinking that they were superior, but he was a big nationalist, and I think being a nationalist is a great thing, in my opinion. I
Yeah.
think
And
putting your country first is a great thing.
it's always a great
And
thing. And unfortunately, what people have done is anytime anyone tries to be a nationalist, they're, oh, you're Adolf Hitler, right? So what's happened with Hitler is
I think he's a
they
globalist. I don't think he was a nationalist. I think
yeah.
he was a globalist.
You think Hitler was a globalist?
Yeah, I mean, he wanted to take all over Europe. He wanted to take all over the world because he thought that his race was superior and that they could reign
Um,
and be the leaders of the world much better of
yeah.
having each people its own country.
I don't know. Recently, I've really yeah, like you, I've been looking more into World War II and all that and Hitler, and I'm not really sure. I don't have. I would say I don't have a I don't have a exact opinion fully formed opinion on it yet, right? Because when I started researching and learned those things that you're talking about, how Hitler did he fixed like he fixed his whole entire nation basically, right? He made it prosper again. And so when you start reading that, it kind of changes your perspective a little bit.
It
Um,
just like I don't know
and so
who writes history.
the winners,
No
right?
one. And people that win, they're not always right. You know, they get to manipulate and control the flow of information. So I'm just being like devil's advocate when it comes to this stuff. I just don't like to just believe what's written or what people tell me. So that's why I'm like, what if it happened differently? I
Yeah.
don't know. You know?
Yeah, and that's how I kind of question too. I'm like, okay, well, maybe it happened differently. And so with it, I guess what I was gonna say is like, I think what really I don't know exactly what happened. I'm learning the truth again. I'm having to
Obviously, we
restudy,
weren't there. We
relearn
weren't there in
history.
1933 and
Yeah,
1945 and everything.
yeah. So I'm having to kind of look back through and go, okay, what do I actually know? What's the actual truth? And so I do question. I'm like, did Hitler really want to? Was he really a racial supremacist? I think he just loved his country and wanted to preserve his country. And I think he saw
Okay, but why did
Bolshevism.
he invade Russia then?
Why? Because of Bolshevism, right? So the same people don't know this, but the people who did the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia were ethnic Jews. 84% of the leadership was ethnic Jews, right?
In
The
Russia?
In Russia, yeah. So the
No,
people that,
I knew that he hated communism.
yeah,
He hated
yes.
despite communism.
Well, yeah, and so I guess the point is that's kind of the reason, right? Like they say, like he hated the Jews or whatever, right? Was because they were the ones behind the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. And people don't know this, but 30 to 60 million Orthodox Christians were murdered in Soviet Russia. They always talk about the 6 million Jews that Hitler purportedly killed or whatever, but they'll never tell you that kind of the reason that he hated them was because they did the Bolshevik Revolution, which killed. And do you know something else? When Hitler he invaded into Russia, he reopened a lot of the Orthodox churches that had been closed down. They don't tell you that either. So like this whole narrative has been flipped on its head, and people are now just starting to wake up to like, okay, history is not quite as black and white as I thought it was,
It's
right?
not.
It's
It's
not.
never about good guys and
And
bad
bad
guys. It's a
guys.
lot of gray.
If you look at it as good guy, bad guy, you're not
You're an
really
amateur,
seeing clearly.
and you're an
Yeah.
amateur. You don't understand reality. You don't understand history. You don't understand that winners write history. And people, yeah, there's never good guys and bad guys.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. It's like the
And so,
whole Israel Gaza thing. Like
yeah,
the fact that
and
children are being killed is just not good at all, regardless
exactly.
if they're seen bad or whatever. So
Yeah.
anyhow,
Exactly. And so I guess my question is, was Hitler really like wanted to take over the globe? I don't think he really did. I felt like I think what he thought was his hand was forced and he had no choice. And people also don't know this. One of the reasons he invaded Poland is because they were ethnically cleansing the Germans in Poland. Right? And so the
really,
yeah, yeah, so they were killing a lot of the Germans that lived in Poland. And so that was one of the reasons that he invaded. And the other reason was because, I mean, the Bolshevik Revolution was an ongoing thing that was happening to the nations that were next to the Soviet Union, right? So it was like spreading, right? Communism was spreading. And so he was trying to he saw that as a threat. He wanted to stop that threat. And so I believe that's why he invaded Poland. And then here's what's happened. Now let's go to the Rothschilds, okay? You have this group called the Rothschilds. The other thing Hitler did was he didn't want these Jewish bankers to be in Germany. He wanted to get them out of Germany, right? And he wanted Germany to have its own currency that was not based around this international group which of bankers that finds, right? Because the Rothschilds had set up shop, had set up their banks in every single country in Europe, basically, right? Even in the United States. And so though it was the Rothschilds and you guys can Google this, and the Warburgs that actually funded both sides of World War One. And so Hitler wanted to get those people out, right? But those people had a lot of influence. People don't know this. The Balfour Declaration, which was a declaration that Lord Rothschild signed. I believe it was with the Parliament of the UK. I could be wrong about that small detail, but this was during World War One, And the Balfour Declaration basically allowed a lot of the Jews to start returning to Palestine. And they're like, if you start letting us return to Palestine, then we can use our influence in America to get the Americans to enter the World War I, which we did in 1917 because of this, because of the Balfour Declaration. That's what got the Americans to enter the war. The Germans were like winning the war; it was going to come to an end, and then here comes the Rothschilds. Hey, we can get the Americans to enter. All you got to do is sign here, right? And so that's what ended up happening. And then with the Treaty of Versailles, they put all of the blame for the entire war on the Germans, even though they didn't start the war. And so, and you at the same time, you have a million Germans starving in Germany. They're driving
It
off
was a mess, yes.
yeah, they're driving off a million head of cows to pay off their debt, this debt, right? And they have hyperinflation. You have Magnus Hirschfeld. He's a Jewish doctor. He starts a school of
I
sexology
think that
where he promotes
the
transgenderism.
I think the currency, if I'm not mistaken, it was about 4 to 8 German whatever that was into a dollar, and then like overnight it was like a trillion of those same things into a dollar. It was like
Yeah.
it just it got the value was just completely gone
Yeah, like the
for the
inflation was just like in the roof. Like people
it
were
was insane.
starving. Like it was really bad. Like the nation was hurting. Like they were basically forced to pay off the debt for the entire war for everyone else, essentially. And that's what led to Hitler's rise to power. And so people don't understand that. They'd never understand what like the Bolshevik Revolution, right? And they don't understand all these other things that led to World War II. Like World War I was just a pause, right? The war never really ended. So, anyways, that's kind of, I don't know, that's some things I think people don't understand. And if they would start researching and understanding a little bit more about Hitler, about the why, and then they might see, I think he was just a guy who really loved his country and wanted to do the best for his country. Now,
Is
I
that
don't,
how you see him?
well, I guess it goes back to this question, right? Because they always say, oh, the Holocaust, right? And that's another taboo topic. Don't you ever speak out against the Holocaust, right? Like the New World religion is the Jew, like they've replaced Jesus Christ with God's chosen people, the Jews,
I agree.
and they are now and the Holocaust has become the new Gethsemane, the new atonement. And if you speak out against it, then you are Hitler. Who
But
is Hitler? He's the devil.
what's what's your actual take on it? Give
My
me the unfiltered version of it. What's your
So
actual take on it?
my unfiltered version, and again, guys, like this opinion might change. I might look back on this interview in 5 years and go, man, that guy, I was not thinking right, or I didn't know what I was talking about, right? So I'm still learning. But as of right now, I would say my opinion is here's what happened. Obviously, Hitler did hate the Jews, right? So, and he did have internment camps, right? He did have the concentration camps. He did, right? It was a war. And the reality is, the Bolsheviks were fighting against him, and they were Jewish, and they were working
No,
with
before you sorry to interrupt you, I just
yeah,
wanna make a point of why he hated the Jews, which I think is important. In Mein Kampf, one of the main points of why he hated the Jews is because he would blame the Jews for everything that he hated, the ideologies, which is liberalism, Marxist, democracy, capitalism, and cultural change, calling them parasites that must be removed from society. So he would blame a lot of the problems that he would have in his own country and around he would tie that up to the Jews.
yeah,
That's why he hated these guys so bad.
right.
So just to put a pinpoint on it. But
Yeah,
anyhow,
no,
keep going.
yeah, no, exactly, exactly. And so, kind of what my unfiltered version, and like I said, this might change, is so he had these concentration camps. He viewed them as an enemy, and in a lot of cases, in 1933, there's a news article you can find. Judea declares war on Germany, right? Hitler was actually trying to let a lot of the Jews go back to Palestine. People don't know that in the 1930s. You can go look this up. Like he was trying to let them go back, but not all of
Really?
them. Well, yeah, not all of them wanted to. Um, but anyways, what happens is the war breaks out, right? And um and so obviously a lot of the Bolshevik leadership were Jewish. So he sees that as a threat. So you know he starts these concentration camps. Um, But when you actually start looking into the numbers, it's changed over time, right? This number 6 million, it's like I've seen news articles from the
Do you
1920s
believe
and
it's 6 million?
no, so I believe that basically what happened was about 271,000 Jews died from starvation, mostly starvation at the end of the war. Were some of them murdered? Yeah, probably some of them were murdered. It was a war like that was going on,
You
and
think
that's
they
wrong.
had gas chambers?
And that's wrong, but I don't know. I don't believe that. Those gas chambers were for like they had lice, rats, different things in these camps.
So
So
wait, this is breaking news right now, Chris, because I've been looking into that too, and I've been trying to come up with the exact number of
yeah,
how many. I mean, not the exact number, but maybe an approximate. So you don't believe it's 6 million people that died in World War II?
I don't, but do you know
Jews.
what? I don't. And one of the things that made me realize like maybe it isn't is people's reaction. If you even say that, there's this instant emotional you hate Jews and you want people to die and you want to murder people and you're a terrible, horrible person,
Okay, I can see
right?
that's a
So,
valid point. It triggers
so
people to
it triggers people
yeah. Okay,
instantly, like that. And they'll look at
interesting.
you as you're the devil himself. Even though you're just questioning the numbers, you're looking at it like set the emotions completely to the side for 1 second and just ask yourself, okay, how do we know this fact? How has this fact been established over time? And so when I began to look into that, I went, oh, okay, you know what? Maybe it's not what I thought it was. And I started looking, and there's other people, like organizations from like the Red Cross and other things that after the war had a completely different take, who said it was closer, the deaths in these concentration camps of Jews were closer to 271,000. And most of those were from starvation, and it wasn't a systematic killing. Because when you try to actually do the math, you find out it was almost mathematically impossible for them to have gassed that many people and then drug them up the stairs into these chambers, and then the time it takes. I know this sounds kind of gruesome, but we have to actually put our emotions aside for a second so that we can understand what the reality is. And when you start looking into it, you understand that we haven't been told the full true story. Now, that doesn't mean that that's good, that's okay, that what was done, that doesn't make it okay. Does that make it okay? No. And were some Jew is it okay to hate everybody only because of their group? No. And is it right? So, but we also have to just look at the facts. And so what I think my unfiltered take is that 271,000 died in the Holocaust, and then later on Jews propagated the 6 million number, because I've also seen a news article from the 20s saying how 6 million Jews were displaced in Russia, and I've seen it in an article from the 30s. So it's like this number has been pushed, like this number 6 million, 6 million, 6 million, and everybody in the world knows it. But if you ask them how many Soviets died, they don't know. If you ask them how many Americans, how many British, how many French, how many Germans died in World War II, no one knows. But everyone knows 6 million died. And don't you ever question, or you're the devil himself. And so that's when I kind of
I
realized,
agree.
like, yeah,
I don't know, genuinely. I don't
yeah, me neither.
trust the media. I don't trust a lot of the history. I don't trust a lot of what people's opinions are because people lie a lot, and I've been able to see a lot of what's underneath the superficial stuff that they just show you. Oh, America, we're freedom. No, we're not. Like this is actually a lie. We're not free. Back in the day when America was like starting, they wanted to charge like I think it was what 3% on taxes on freaking like tea or something. They made a whole revolution about it. What was the percentage again?
Yeah, it was
Do you
like
remember?
3% tax, and now we have
Revolution.
40% on everything.
Now we're
Yeah.
paying like 40 something. So we're not free. We work for the government. Most of our money, income, or whatever goes to the government and goes to other countries. So we're not free. That this whole idea that we're freedom fighters, it's a bunch of BS. And so yes, I agree with you. I distrust the media. I distrust all these articles that have come up, and I wouldn't be surprised genuinely if it's less than 6 million.
Yeah.
At the time in Europe,
And
there was about 9.5 million Jews. Poland had 3 million, Soviet Union had 2.5, Romania 750, Germany about 525,000, Hungary 400,000, France 250, Czechoslovakia 350,000. Well, where's the Where all the Jews? If they had 6 million, how the heck? Well, I'm trying to do some math here. In 1933, Poland had 3 million. Soviet and Germany took over Poland. That's 3 right there. And then 2.5 in the Soviet Union. Did Germany took any part of the Nazis took any part of the Soviet Union? Any territory?
Yeah, because they initially invaded, right? Like we have the Battle of Stalingrad, which is one of the worst battles where millions of Germans and Russians died. And so they did invade Russia for a time, but then they ended up eventually losing that too. Right at the end of the war, they
They took
lost.
Hungary, they took France, Czechoslovakia, 350, and Austria. All right, the math doesn't. If 6 million Jews died, but only if you count the 3 million that were in Poland at the time, 750,000 Romania, Germany 525,000, Hungary 400,000, France 250, Czechoslovakia 350,000, and Austria 190,000. That adds up to 5,465,000. So it's not even.
So it's not even 6 million.
And again, these are just approximate numbers.
Yeah.
So could be 6 million, but that's if you kill all of.
But that's
the
killing everyone, and there's no
everybody.
one left. Yeah.
Which is, and then at the time there was about 4.2, 4.5 million Jews in the U.S. Most Jews were in Europe in that time.
Yeah, and if you know, have you seen Schindler's List?
No.
So it's a movie. It's originally a book, but it's a movie about, and then it became a movie about the Holocaust. And in it, it says this is a fictional account. A fictional account. So the whole thing's fictional. And what the Jews did is that since they have mainstream control of our Hollywood, media, everything, they pushed this narrative of World War II and the Holocaust to where the whole entire war was revolving around them and how they were persecuted. And they've weaponized that against Europeans now. And so now you can't be a nationalist, right? So my unfiltered take was, Hitler, he felt like he was trying to save Germany. He was trying to save Christianity, and he put Jews in concentration camps. And, it was a war, so a lot of them starved and died at the end because the Germans were running out of supplies and they were losing. But guess what? Do you know who else did concentration camps?
Who?
The United States. Did you know that?
Where?
So we gathered all the Japanese in World War II and we put them in concentration camps. One of them was actually here in Utah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So we did concentration camps too. Nobody, right? But right, but I guess the difference is they tell you that the Germans were mass killing and we were just holding
the U.S.
the
has
Japanese.
done horrible things too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm with it.
Yeah.
Like,
so
I mean,
yeah. So my point is, it's like, so if that is true, okay, and look, guys, again, I'm still learning. Okay, my opinion can change. If that is actually true, that most of the Jews that died in World War II, like the Holocaust didn't happen like the way they said it did, and it was only 271,000, right? It completely changes the entire story and your entire worldview forever. It's like your whole worldview gets shattered. It's like everything changes now, because if that's not true, was Hitler really that bad of a guy if he was just trying to save his country, and if he was just trying to stop communism from taking over? And do you know what happened? Half of Germany was living under communism until the 90s. So in a way, he was right. Germany lost.
Think about this, Chris. Because of World War II, because of what happened to the Jews, because of this whole idea that the Jews were the main thing, people, all these Jews that died, 6 million that were murdered, and all the survivors, and like made the Jews the main focus on the world. Back in the day, Palestine was a territory from the British Mandate for Palestine. About 1.2 million Arabs, Muslims, and Christians lived there, and about 600,000 Jews by the mid-1940s. Now, because of what happened with the Holocaust, before all this stuff that happened with the Jews, the UN did a partition plan in 1947, and they voted to to split the land in 2 states, one Jewish and one Arab, and then Jerusalem under international control. and then Jewish leadership accepted the plan, and then the Arab leadership rejected it in opposition of any Jewish state. But then in 1948, the state of Israel was declared, and then they became an independent state of Israel. And then 5 Arab armies invaded, and then the whole war started happening because they just pretty much, if World War II, if the whole thing with the Holocaust wouldn't have happened, Israel wouldn't existed today. The whole state of Israel wouldn't have, maybe would have existed because these guys find some way to be there, and they probably wanted the land, so maybe like something else, another war, something would have happened. I think there's some controlling that they provoked certain ways, in my opinion, as all wars are created. They're not just, oh yeah, we're gonna go to war because we just don't like you. I think they're a lot of provoked. But if the Holocaust wouldn't have happened, Israel wouldn't be the state of Israel right now. It wouldn't be the independent state of Israel. So because the Holocaust happened, the UN and the world and everybody, they saw the Jewish people as just these poor little people that were just being destroyed. And maybe they were, I don't know, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, trying to ask some questions. And then they gave the land and the Muslim land that they had back in the day with Palestine, and then they gave Israel in 1948, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Of how that works.
Yeah, and exactly, that's the point, is like the whole base of what, like basically the whole entire basis of, hey, the Jews need a homeland, it needs to be Palestine.
Like them being killed and
Yeah.
spread all over the world, we gotta give them a homeland.
Like, we gotta give them a homeland. It's all based around the Holocaust narrative, right? And so whether, like, the truth around the Holocaust is one of the most important things that I think we can possibly understand, and it's something I'm gonna be researching till the day I die, because, one sec, I'm gonna grab something. Wanted to just want to show you guys. This is my great grandfather. Okay, his name's Otto Johannes Doling, and he fought for Germany in World War I. So he fought in the same army with Adolf Hitler. So, for me, when
wait, would you say he was a Nazi?
No, he wasn't a Nazi. He immigrated to the U.S. in 1927, but he fought for Germany in the First World War.
Oh, in the First World War.
Yeah,
dude, I come from German descendant. I was studying my ancestors because I have one of my great grandfather. He moved from Germany to Chile in the 1940s, 1950s, if I'm not mistaken. Then married my great grandma, and I was actually searching if he was either part of the Nazi party at the time, or he did anything, or he just ran away to not be drafted into the war. I'm still doing research, but I have ties to it in a way that I went to a German school growing up.
Wow.
For 14 years. We don't have high school, middle school, or anything. It's everything in the same place. So
did they teach you like German there? And
yeah, I would. My first language was Spanish. My second was German, and then my third was English. So I was taught German most of my life. Now I became very lazy and I lost it. So now I just speak Spanish and English and a little bit of Portuguese. But German is still there. My mom's side, she's a German teacher. We have Argentina and Chile, they have big ties of the European descendants, because a lot of the German people, and Italian too, in Uruguay, but a lot of, after World War II, Argentina and Chile were one of the few countries that gave lands to Germans that they were fleeing from the country, or they just didn't want to find. They just gave a lot of land. So there were a lot of colonies back in the day, including Brazil too, part of Brazil. So South America, in fact, was one of the only countries that, while World War II was happening, would trade with Germany,
right,
and would trade with the Nazis and give them resources and exports and whatnot. And I think it was part of Asia, if I'm not mistaken, besides everybody in the world. So South America was a huge part of that's what they think, that Adolf Hitler did not commit suicide, and then he went to Argentina.
Yeah, and I don't think he did either. And there's been some documents that have coming out.
Or there's a documentary that talks about it's created by these Jews. What's this movie?
Yeah, so that's my opinion. I don't think he did. But anyways, I just want to say that was something that changed my mind when I found out that one of my ancestors fought for Germany. Like, that was, so I'm LDS, right? And he was the first convert in my family. So after he fought for World War I. Like his whole entire regiment got shot and killed except for him, and he survived. He was on the battlefields in France, and so when I found that out, I'm like, it couldn't be just this whole German nation was just a bunch of evil people, and they just wanted to kill Jews. Like this whole narrative I've been told is not
Grey
exactly.
Wolf is the documentary.
Yeah, Grey Wolf. Okay.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
the Jews intelligence, they go to Argentina and try to I think it's that one, if I'm not mistaken. There's one specifically, Jews intelligence.
And I've seen pictures as well from like a guy who looks very, very similar to Adolf Hitler in 1960s Argentina. But
Operation, I think it's the Nazi Hunters Operation Finale. It might be Operation Finale. I forgot which one it was. I was
yeah.
looking at it the other day. There's a lot of conspiracy theories around it. I think with everything that we've been talking about, dude, when it comes to the Jews, Hitler, America, we can definitely say as a fact that America is not America first. A lot of politicians, they do have Israel's best interest. We haven't even talked about AIPAC, but the amount of money that they raise for their opponents, I mean, for their politicians, Republicans and Democrats, that's a bipartisan thing. It's not even like a left versus right, both. Usually, if you're funded by AIPAC, most likely you're going to win,
Yeah, they
regardless
have.
if you're Democrat or Republican.
I'm pretty sure they even brag on their website that 98% of their candidates end up winning.
Yeah,
So,
which
so
is
it's
very
like,
interesting.
which just shows you that. So it's like most politicians are funded by this group, and then they
And
take
what's
trips
the
to
purpose of the
Israel.
group? If you look at what the purpose of AIPAC, which is a lobby in the U.S. government, is to raise and fund money to send to Israel, is to strengthen American and Israeli relationships. So, and it's not declared as a foreign lobby. It's what's the word? It's the I was researching this the other day because I think JFK was one of the guys that would actually wanted AIPAC to register as a foreign lobby, but they're not. So they have like different restrictions and more benefits that's not being registered to. So anyway, it's very interesting because a lot of the consultants for uh, politicians, they're AIPAC and they work pretty close together to pass laws to protect Israel and to help with funding and aid to Israel. Like you're not gonna see in government, they can defer if immigration, they cannot agree on abortion, they cannot agree in military stuff, but they will always agree on Israel funding and support,
Yeah,
which is very interesting.
yeah, it's the
It's like the
one thing
one
that
thing
can
they agree in.
across the board, you know. And it's
Yeah.
interesting, like I thought it was interesting what you said about JFK. He tried to stop it, and
No, he was
um,
one pushing it. Yeah,
yeah,
he was one of the guys that was pushing it.
well, yeah, he was pushing for them to register as a foreign lobby, right? But they managed to avoid it. Um, and as well, he was pushing against them getting nuclear weapons, Israel getting nuclear weapons, and what happens right after JFK dies? Next guy comes in and he stops that and he just lets them do whatever they want. There is an interesting quote. I don't know if you've ever heard this quote. JFK had an interesting quote about Hitler. He said so after the war, JFK was a veteran, right? And so after the war, he was also a journalist. So he went along, and this is what he wrote in his diary in 1945. JFK wrote, Hitler had in him the stuff of which legends are made, and will emerge from the hatred that surrounds him now as one of the most significant figures who ever lived. And so it's just interesting, history is interesting, and it's interesting how these patterns repeat, right? Um, and we just see them across the board. And I think it's interesting how God has also created different groups of people that have different ideologies and things that tend to lead towards certain ends or certain things, right? You notice that with Catholics, and you notice that with Jews and LDS, right? Like there's certain things that each group is good at, and maybe
Yeah.
some bad things too. So I just
Well,
think it's interesting as we look through this and as we're talking about Israel and all these things.
I just have a lot of questions, and I'm excited to have these other podcasts with these people that do they're very pro-Israel and have a lot of knowledge in Israel and why we need to support Israel and stuff. But just have a lot of questions. Why we don't even believe the same thing. We don't even believe they don't believe in Christ as the Messiah. That's a big thing. Oh yeah, but the Bible's yeah, but they don't even believe in Christ. Why do we support them? Why do we give
Yeah.
them so much money? Why the Holocaust stuff? Why Hitler stuff? Like I don't know. I think asking questions is not a bad thing. I think asking questions is a human thing, and I think it's a necessary thing. And every time they try to push an agenda down your throat, and this whole Charlie Kirk situation, and what Bibi's doing, and all these influencers, and then they get paid 7,000 per post that they make about Israel, and how they
That's what I want to
polite
ask you.
what?
That's what I want to ask you about those guys you're going to have on. I'm like, are they getting paid the $7,000?
Well, dude, you came out that the influencers that we're meeting by promoting Israel stuff, they get paid $7,000 per post.
Yeah.
And it's very like Cam Higby, a lot of it's been, I don't know if you've heard about him because
Mm-mm.
he's in my space with the whole debates and stuff. A lot of people like him, the whole following. Well, he was in that meeting and he's very much supportive of Israel. And I don't know, dude. I'm an immigrant. I love this country. I love America. I met my wife here. Uh, I think America, it is the best country in the world. Everybody else, wherever you go to, they see the United States as this pinnacle of paradise of fulfilling your dreams and the American dream, and that you can come here and become and do whatever you want. And it's sad because when the 4.5 years, almost 5 years that I've been here, I would say, dude, that I am more American than most Americans. And I care about more about this country than most people do that they live here. And the reason why I care is because I've seen the difference. I've seen what communism, socialism, and politics can do to a country because it happened to mine. And I think part of the second coming when Christ comes back is that the US is going to fall at some point. It has to fall. Every empire has fallen in history. But I also have studied a lot of things and I try to use common sense and just ask questions. And when I read the Book of Mormon and I see that one of the big falls, why the empire of the Nephites fell and everybody and the Lamanites is because of this underground organization with the bands of Gadianton, and that they had secret combinations and they control a lot of things and they used war and death and robbery and theft and all these weird ideologies. And when I've studied that and I see a lot of similarities in society right now, it scares me because a lot of people don't look at it. A lot of people, they listen to what's on TikTok or social media or their favorite influencer or the news or whatever, and that's just superficial stuff, but they don't see that there's a whole web and thing underneath that is so dark and that we gotta fight it. And sadly, I don't know why, but a lot of this underground group that they do have an agenda is really related to the freaking Jews.
Yeah.
And if you talk
Um,
about it, you're anti-Semite. If you talk about it, you're racist. If you talk about it, you shouldn't be talking about it, or they kick you out of the country. I don't understand why.
yeah.
Like
Eh,
people criticize the U.S. all the time. And they don't get
yeah.
deported. They don't
Right.
get
I
friggin'
th-
flagged. They don't get banned. But
right.
why, when we talk about Israel, we do? Why? I just
I,
have questions. Why?
yeah. Right. And
You
I
know,
think what it goes back to is the Holocaust, right? Is we've all been brainwashed to think a certain way about history and so as soon as you question it, what do they call you? They call you Hitler, or they call you and you're just asking a question. You don't have
I'm
no.
asking like I'm an
I'm just
open
asking
guy.
questions.
Yeah.
I don't hate Jews, dude. I went to one of my favorite reggae musicians. He's Jewish, Matis Yahu. Went to his concert. It was awesome. Loved it.
I
Like
just want
I just
transparency. I want truth. I don't like
yes.
when people control stuff. And I think a lot of people in the United States can relate to that. He's like, just leave us alone. Like, we don't want unnecessary wars. We don't want to be controlled. We don't want to have a propaganda of what we need to believe and say and talk and dress and all these different things. We don't want that a group gets treated special with everything. And why not the people in this country? Like, I was researching a lot of, for example, misconceptions or conspiracy theory about the Jews. And a lot of stuff I think is kind of like common sense. I don't think it's a conspiracy theories, but for example, number one, Jews control the banks and the world finance. Second, Jews cause wars or revolutions. Third, Jews control Hollywood and the media. Fourth, Jews spread disease or social decay. Fifth, Jews faked or exaggerated the Holocaust. Sixth, all Jews think alike or support Israel's government. Seventh, Jews control secret governments or the New World Order. And all this stuff is like very bad misconception and to be honest, dude, I believe a lot of the things. If I'm being honest with you, I believe a lot of this stuff.
Well,
And I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people do too.
I think some of it's not conspiracy though, and we've called it
I don't
conspiracy.
think so.
Like it's statistics. Like they do control most of the banks and a lot of companies.
Like,
you were talking about earlier.
30% of billionaires are Jews. That's not a conspiracy.
That's not a conspiracy. It's just a fact, right? But and I think here's the thing. I think too is like a lot of what the Israelis and the Jews don't understand is like if they would just be transparent. I don't, and if they wouldn't try to, I wouldn't really care too much about what Israel was doing if we weren't sending them $3.4 billion. If they didn't control control 95% of Congress through AIPAC, and if our politicians weren't being blackmailed by Mossad, and if all of these other things weren't happening, probably people wouldn't really care that much, right? And people would, but it's these things how they try to stop us from even being able to have a conversation. Like posts get taking time all the time.
That's my point. It's having a conversation. Because the moment you try to shut me down, I'm like, it's kind of sus. Why are you pushing this on me? If somebody says about like somebody's talking crap about Ben on social media, like, yeah, dude, this dude is racist. I'm like, okay, well, why do you think I'm racist? Like, let's talk about it. Or like, if they come up with this whole claim of like, yeah, this dude friggin' punched somebody in the face in this day. I'm like, okay, let me address it. And no, I was actually not there and this is what happened. Like, I would address it instead of being like, no, F you, dude, and you're racist, or and you're this, and you're just spreading lies and calling you all these different names. Like, I don't mind having a conversation and unpacking certain things. For example, like what I just mentioned, Jews control Hollywood and the media. You know who were the founders of MGM, Warner Bros. And Paramount and all these different companies? Most of the companies in media, they're owned by Jews. That's not a conspiracy.
That's not a conspiracy. The reason Hollywood started was because
of the Jews.
Of the Jews, most of the time. Okay, so before Hollywood, the capital of like media and everything was mostly in New York City, okay? And it was by American Christians who were making all the movies and everything. Then here comes along the Jews, and people are like, no, we don't want you. We don't like what you're making. And so they rejected them basically. And so they went to LA and they started Hollywood. They started their own thing. Right. And so I literally have a book over here that's called How the Jews Started Hollywood. And it's not like it's a anti-Semitic thing. It's just a fact. They did. Right. And
it's just weird, dude. I don't know.
It's just weird.
I might have you, if you want to be on this podcast and just ask this dude questions, I think it would be cool. Because he's very knowledgeable when it comes to Israel stuff and history, allegedly. But I just have a lot of questions, and I think people have a lot of questions, and I think we should have questions, and we should ask these questions. And the moment we stop talking and asking these questions, that's the moment that violence starts.
Yes, that's the problem.
Always talked about it, and even with Charlie Kirk, this whole being Israel and that he was at Israel, it's not true. This dude, honestly, I think he was pretty much awakened of what was happening with Israel. And
yeah,
if Israel killed him or something, I don't know. But I think there's an agenda for sure. And I don't know, dude. I just have a lot of questions.
Yeah, me too. I'm just questioning. I don't
want answers.
Yeah, me too. I just want to know what's going on. I want to know the truth about history. I want to know what's really happening. And it's just interesting because we're living in the last days, man. This is the book of Revelation right now.
Yeah.
This is what we're seeing it's like we're literally watching the times before Christ comes back. And it's like watching a movie. It's like a script and the devil's got his script and God's also, got his script. So yeah, man, it's crazy times.
It is sad, dude. Even with the whole, just wrapping it up with the whole thing that Charlie Kirk happened, the whole Israel agenda, which is so messed up because it was not true. Gaza stuff, freaking, I don't care what you do, dude. Killing children, it's never. And the argument is like, yeah, but the U.S. Who cares, dude? I don't genuinely care. You shouldn't be killing children. And they just did a peace deal with Trump, and then Israel bombed again Gaza. Yep. And I'm like, dude, what the heck? And then all the people, and then a bunch of kids died, and all the Israeli influencers and freaking paid for it. Like, oh, but Hamas was using kids as shields. How do you know that? How do you know?
And what do they say then? Their whole argument is how they're God's chosen people, right? and that now gives them license to go and just kill anybody and do anything
And
they want.
just
Like what?
asking these questions doesn't make me hate the Jews. I just hate people that lie. I just don't like when people lie. I don't like when people use secret stuff to hide certain things, and they want to ban you and deplatform you because you ask certain questions, you talk about certain topics. And that's why I'm going to have this interview and this podcast with this dude. I'm very excited. I have a lot of questions and things that we talked about today. And I'm gonna ask him because I think I wanna hear that side, and I think a lot of Americans, a lot of people in this country, they want to know, like, if your tax dollars are being sent to another country, and this whole media agenda is being pushed to us, why? We want to know why.
Yeah.
And anyhow, there's a lot of things to
It's-
unpack, and I'm still gonna do a lot of research.
yeah.
I'm very curious about the World War II thing and Hitler
Yeah,
and
me too.
Jews and everything.
It's for me, it's gonna be a lifelong pursuit of looking for the truth and trying to
Yeah, because
understand
he's
it.
like, you read a book and then you're like, okay, I'm reading something. Who wrote this book? And what's this dude's belief and what did he believe in or how he lived his life? So you gotta vet everything that you read.
Yeah.
Not everything that you read is facts.
Yeah.
You know, so I think in today's society, and Prophet M. Nelson, he always talked about that it would be impossible for us in the latter days to live without the Spirit. Like you cannot survive if you don't have the Holy Ghost. And I think one of the reasons is because there's a lot of information out there that you need a lot of discernment. And I think people are just being brainwashed and push these whole propaganda and agenda. So I'm curious, you guys, if you please comment down in the comments, what do you guys think of everything that we've been discussing? 6,270,000 Jews in the Holocaust. Hitler, what do you guys think about it? What do you guys think about these whole conspiracy theories about the Jews, Israel? Why is Israel first and America second? Probably America is even fifth because there's other countries on the list. The creation of Israel, the media, Bibi Netanyahu, there's just a lot of it, and I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of superficial stuff that we talk a lot about it today, but there's a lot of underneath
Yeah.
things
And
in the surface
it's
level.
kind of a topic that just like
It's just so much to talk
there's
about. Dude. Look
so much to unpack because at the end of it all, it goes right back to right back to Christ. You know,
It's like
like
if we just start from the biblical standpoint, when they're like, yeah, but Abraham's promise, and it's
yeah,
just not true. Christ literally said, if you're a believer, Gentile, and Jew, and you just accept my gospel, you're part of my family.
yeah,
It's not the Jews are not the chosen ones. I don't care who you are. That's a bunch of baloney, and they don't even believe in Christ. So why would I defend somebody that doesn't have even the same beliefs that I and I'm not saying that I'm not going to defend them. I'm not going to go after them, but they don't even believe in Christ as their savior. So this whole Christian Zionist stuff, it's just a way of like, yeah, but God says it, so therefore you must believe it. I'm like, what?
yeah.
It's
It's like
just
I don't know if you saw Ted Cruz where he was like trying to use the Bible to justify that. Well, the
he doesn't
Bible
even.
says those who bless Israel will be blessed and those who curse Israel will curse. Well, the government state entity, which was created in 1948, which is secular, by the way, Jewish state entity of Israel was created in 1948. That government isn't the promised Israel. Israel, the house of Israel, right, is the covenant God made
It's the
with
12 tribes of
Jacob,
Israel.
the 12 tribes of
Yes.
Israel. And it's all and who's allowed into the 12 tribes? Those who accept Jesus
Everyone who
Christ.
accepts Christ, yes.
Everyone who accepts Christ.
Not by blood.
Yeah, it's not about being born into this thing, right? So,
Yeah.
and the last thing I want to share for any of our LDS viewers out there, there's a quote by a 12 apostle in 1881. This is from the Journal of Discourses, volume 14, Discourse 46, page 353. In it, he specifically he literally prophesies about the formation of the nation state of Israel in 1948. He says, now here is the difference between Zion and Old Jerusalem. The Jews, or many of them, will gather back to Jerusalem in a state of unbelief in the true Messiah, believing in the prophets but rejecting the New Testament and looking for the Messiah to come. Honest-hearted, no doubt, many of them, and they will rebuild Jerusalem after the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Right? So he says after the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled, then the Jews are going to come back. Then he says, while in that state of unbelief, Gog and Magog, the inhabitants of Russia and all those nations in northern Europe and northern Asia, a great multitude, will gather against the Jews before Jesus comes, and they will fill up the great valley of Armageddon. the great valley of Josaphat and all the surrounding valleys. They will be like a cloud covering the land. Horses and chariots and horsemen, a very great army will gather up to take spoil. And then this part's kind of interesting to me because he talks about the Rothschilds, and the Rothschilds were the ones who bought the land of Palestine from the British Mandate when the British first owned it, right? This is what
Interesting.
so he says, and this is in 1881 before they moved back, like decades before this happened, like 30, 40
1881.
years. 1881. Yeah. So this is what he says to finish off. He says, "For you know when the Rothschilds and the great bankers among the Jewish nation shall return back to their own land to rebuild the city of Jerusalem, carrying their capital with them, it will almost ruin some of the nations. Think about Germany. Okay, and the latter will go up against Jerusalem to take spoil, and they will succeed in taking half the city captive. And when they are in the act of destroying that city, behold, the Lord will come with all his saints, and he shall stand his feet on the Mount Olives. And in that day, says the prophet Zechariah, shall the Lord go forth and fight against all those nations that have fought against Jerusalem, and their flesh shall consume away upon their bones, their eyes in their sockets. The great calamity comes upon the Jewish nation in consequence of their unbelief in the true Messiah." So
Interesting.
it's an interesting quote because that was said
Who said that?
30.
What's his name?
His name's Orson Pratt, and I'll send that to
Okay.
you. But it's very interesting because it's like, to me, I was like, dang, we do have apostles, man. That dude knew what was going to happen like 40 years before it happened. 40,
Well,
50, 60, 70 years before.
prophets, I mean, they just really see the future. He's like, I always talk about the family proclamation that was in 1995, and I was like, oh, but that's common sense. But yeah, but now it's controversial. They knew what was gonna happen in family and stuff, and these guys genuinely see the future, and they prophesy, and they're legit. They're like the 12 apostles back in the day in Christ's time, and they're the new Moses, Aaron, friggin' Jacob, David, all these prophets back in the day. So anyhow, dude, that was good. It's a good
Yeah.
conversation. Guys, let us know what you guys think in the comments. We're gonna definitely do more episodes like this in the future. I mean, this was the first one when the first one we've done about Israel and the Jewish people and some history, kind of like surface level stuff for sure. But I think a lot of you guys might agree, just using common sense, and then we're gonna dive deep in different segments and different episodes as we keep going. I'm really curious about the interview. I'll hit you up if you want to be participant in the interview I'm gonna have with this guy, and we can just ask him questions and play devil's advocate.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
They were
let
gonna
me.
to be want me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, why are you bringing this guy? I don't even know this dude. I didn't even invite him, but I'm like, you know what? Maybe he seems like a cool guy. I'll have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, let me
again,
know. I'm down to do it. I'm like, again, the nice thing I feel about is like I have no worries because I don't. The only agenda I have is that Christ is king and America should be put first, and we should uphold our
yeah,
Constitution, and
I'm the same way.
that's it. I don't have any
I'm
other
an
agenda.
LDS nationalist. That's who I am.
Exactly, I'm an LDS nationalist. I mean, I started Nauvoo Legion page. Okay, so I got this picture in my room of Joseph Smith raising the sword for the Nauvoo Legion. So that's what I
Yeah.
am. I'm an LDS nationalist.
I'll hit you up, dude.
So
I'll let you know for next week. I think we're gonna do it Wednesday if you're free or you got work. But also we're doing debates. I'm trying to gather some stuff so we can do UVU, BYU. There's just a bunch of restrictions with it, but we'll be in touch, brother. Thank you for your time. I
well, yeah.
appreciate it. And guys, share with your friends. Let us know in the comments what you guys think. And we'll see you in the next episode of The Real Christian Show. Bye bye.